let's do it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Living, Breathing, and Having a Good Time. I'm your host, Sierra Cooper, and today we have a writer, producer, and author, Matt Zimble. So we met at PodFest.
We did.
And you were very, very interesting. You've got this real artsy look to you. So when I say artsy, I just knew right off the bat that this guy was like some kind of producer, director. You have an eye for people, you observe people, you sit back, kind of quiet, but you're really forethought and you really take everything in. So that was interesting to me. And that's when I was sitting beside you and we had this group and we were doing improv, wasn't it? Was it
Yeah,
improv?
yeah.
And which I've never done improv in my life, by the way. I've never acted, I've written things, I've spoke, blah blah blah, but I've never had for instance, of the whole yes and with Paul Vato, and he is fantastic. But when I met you, you started telling me about a lot of work that you've done. And so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I started out my career as a musician when I was very young. I was born in New York, and my family moved to Canada to a little island called Prince Edward Island, which is on the east coast of Canada, in the 1970s. Um,
Mhm.
they were not draft dodgers, but they were just really quite sick of, the Vietnam War and everything that was going on in the States, and they wanted to have a simpler, more kind of agrarian life. So they moved to Prince Edward Island, and they bought an old farmhouse right on the shore of facing the ocean, and the house was abandoned. And when we returned to the island after purchasing the house the summer previously, we arrived back on the island to all move in there, and we drove right by it and thought, oh my God, that's not the house, is it? Yeah, it certainly was the house. There were 2,000 pounds of potatoes in the basement and rotting, and yeah, an adventure. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's a story.
Yeah, so Prince
Here's
Edward
your house
Island.
of rotting potatoes.
Oh my God. I don't know if
No,
you've ever smelled rotting potatoes, but it's
I
like
have,
it's something you want
unfortunately.
to avoid on the path towards wellness, believe me. In any event, so I spent 5 or 6 years on PEI, learned a lot down there, learned a lot about being a musician, learned a lot about work. I worked as a stagehand. Then I moved to Montreal, and from there moved to Toronto after a little while. Um, Started a family. I have a band still to this day called Manteca, which is a 9-piece kind of world music, global funk band, and we've done 14 records and toured all over the world. And um, so that's been kind of a lot of the focus of my career. I've also done a lot of work in radio and television. I was the executive producer of a number of TV shows, and produced and directed a few shows as well. Everything from the Canada Day celebrations it's like your 4th of July type of thing for the government of Canada in Ottawa, to the opening of the Pan Am Games for the World Feed, which was really an exciting project. So a lot of different things like that. And I've also started a podcast 5 years ago called Yes We Canada, the Progressive's Guide to Getting the Beep Out. And that is a project that I'm quite passionate about, where we just recorded our 55th episode yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. Congratulations.
thank you.
You remind me of Richard Gere. I don't know why,
People
but
have said that to me
you
before.
so remind me of Richard Gere. You have a very charismatic nature to you, and so I can almost imagine working with you would be so much fun. I can see you being a total people person.
Yeah, I'm a demanding SOB too.
They all are.
I was thinking the other day, I was thinking about, I heard a track of our music on the radio, and I was thinking, wow, I really irritated a lot of people making that music, because we work hard, we have to work
Yeah.
hard. We're working in pretty eclectic stuff. I've always worked in eclectic stuff. I've never been a mainstream guy. My projects are always a little bit left of center, and they're always like, the budgets are never huge. And so we always have to do wacky things to make stuff work, you know. And so that was what we've done, and I'm pretty proud of the work that I've been able to do.
Well, that's your life's legacy. And so when it comes to her, I'm a very hard worker and very meticulous myself, and very detail oriented.
You
So
have to be.
I'm sure people would say the same about me, right? Because we like things done the right way, which is not our way, but it's like getting it done correctly and
Yeah.
efficiently. And in this business, especially in the industry, you never skip a beat. It's like one thing right after another. So for you, I mean, your schedule must be crazy. I mean, from the time you get up to the time you go to bed, right?
It's pretty busy. I mean, you know, it's been very strange, to be perfectly honest with you. After COVID, there was a real gap in what happened in the music industry. Like the music industry basically collapsed after COVID, and the music industry that's kind of emerged from COVID is very, very different, like drastically different. We released our 14th album after COVID, and it was a really innovative project. What happened was, with this band that I've been with all this time, a lot of our children have grown up to become composers and musicians. So what we did,
Absolutely.
we said we would like you guys to co-write the record with us and perform with us on the record. So it's called the Offspring Project, and it's this really
Nice.
interesting kind of blend of the principals of the group and their children, all of whom are professional musicians. There are some kids who play but are not professional musicians. They weren't invited. Just the people who were professional musicians were invited. For example, my son wrote a piece. The co-leader's son wrote a daughter's wrote two pieces. So it was a really interesting project. But man, it did not, did not do well. It just, it did. It's just the industry has just changed so much. You know that the whole thing with Spotify, and like there's no money anymore in making records. Everything's just
Hmm.
disappeared. You know,
Hmm.
it's like the middle
Yes.
class of the record business has just gone away. You're either making bank because you're, doing a billion streams on Spotify, or you're making absolutely nothing. And we were kind of like an upper middle class band before COVID, but now we're not.
So for you, you've been playing music all of your life, obviously. I'm a musician myself. I come from a musically inclined family, and the music that you just described to me, I mean, you totally remind me of a funky guy, like a really, off the cuff, off color, very classy type person, that has an ear for so many different things. So, for a lot of people that know music, right, that think they know music, they turn on the radio and they hear rap. They turn on the radio and they hear just this hardcore, heavy metal, bang your head all day long. But there's really no, have you noticed this with music? Almost like where there's a storyline, where there's something
Mhm.
like where it's really heartfelt, where it grabs you and you just listen to it and you're like, oh wow, I can relate to this because this reminds me of something that happened when I was 9 years old.
Mhm.
So describe your music to people.
Well, we're an instrumental band, so when we're trying to convey emotion, it has to be done musically. It can't be done with lyrics, which is something that separates us from a lot of other people.
Hmm.
I think one of the things that we've done in our approach to the music is we realized very early on that people respond to energy, people respond to impact, people respond to
Okay.
moments where, there's nine of us in the band. There's the horn section, and there's like three drummers, and so like there's a lot of impact in that band. And so a lot of what we do is we try and use that impact to create excitement for people. And it works. I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of music you like. If you look at this band when we're performing, you're usually like, oh, you're intrigued. You know what I mean? Because it's very energetic, and it's very impactful, and it makes, it resonates with people. And so that's the kind of the key emotion we're trading in is excitement and energy, much more so than, say, kind of emotional depth, you know. I mean, you get emotional depth from it by enjoying the impactfulness of it, but it's not
Mhm.
like lyrical emotional depth, you know.
Yeah. So when you do these projects, I'm sure because you're involved with so many things that kind of run together, they correlate together. When you're working with people, how do you teach them in your field of expertise how to make people feel? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I I so totally understand what you're saying. I mean, look, and I think that what you're talking about is one of the keys to successful work in any domain, and that is that you have to have a team that is feeling good about themselves. You have to have a team
Mhm.
that feels respected by the people that have engaged them, by the people that they're working with, by the people that they're working for. And so the way that I structure the projects that I do, a lot of people look at my schedules and they look at where money gets spent and they don't really understand why it's done that way. For example, food is a really big thing for me. So food on set is really, really important. The quality of the food, when food is available, how we eat the food. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I mean, for example, if we're starting a project, the project might start with lunch. I might change the hours so that we all arrive together, we all sit down and we eat for an hour and a half. So we're eating
Right.
together, we're kind of like getting to know each other. We're building that community first, and then we start to do the work, you know. So
Mhm.
in that type of circumstance, I just place a tremendous amount of importance on respect and also on people understanding that they're valued in the workplace, that their contribution is valuable, that they
Yes.
have a place where they should feel free to say something. You know, one of the hardest things about creative work is when you're pushing people to do new things, there's risk involved. You can go down a road.
Mhm.
You could start at, we'll use a musical example. You could spend an hour and a half working on a music arrangement before you realize, you know what? This is just not going to work. This is just not where we need to be. So then
Mhm.
your job at that moment as leader is to take your whole organization and pivot them away from failure without them feeling like they just wasted an hour and a half and failed. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
That,
absolutely.
yeah.
You
So
want them to feel validated in what
exactly,
you're contributing to them.
exactly.
And so going back to directing, I mean, you must be pretty proud of the sets that you've worked on with the people you've worked with. I can only imagine how many people you've impacted and the people that you've taught and really gained value from working with you, because I can tell you're a very impactful person. You're knowledgeable. You speak very, very highly of people. You're very in tune is probably the correct word with your atmosphere and environment around you. So, what's been some of your greatest successes from the little people that you've met throughout your career that you've made the biggest difference for? And what kind of impact was that?
You know, there's, I've met a lot of people who have a lot of ambition. And I remember when I started a job as a program director at a television station, and this young director walked into my office, and this was back in the day when they were still using videotape, and he put a videotape down on the desk, and he was like, "This is the best show that's been shot in this building." It was a music station, right? Ever.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And let me just guess, did you direct it? He says, "I
Mhm.
did." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And so I said, I'll look at it. I'll have a look at it, and I'll get back to you." And he said it was a live shoot, right? And so
Uh-huh.
I went and I started looking at it, and it was like a big rock band, like a really well-known band that was playing here in Canada. I think they were called 3 Days Grace or something. And
Oh
uh,
yeah, 3 days grace. I love
yeah,
3 days grace. Love
so
it.
anyway, so it's like shot so fast and cut so fast. I was like, that is impossible. That you lied to me. That is not live. There is no way you can call the cameras that live, that fast. You can't do it. So he came in to see me after the weekend, and he was like, "Did you see my show?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did." Like, he's arrogant, right? And
Oh yes.
yeah, I saw your show and you lied to me. I said, nobody can call cameras that quick. You can't call them that quick. That wasn't live. You posted it. He goes, no, I switched it myself while I was directing, which was very unheard of at the time. More people do that now, but at the time,
Uh-huh.
so he wasn't calling cameras. He was switching the cameras himself. So
That's
anyway,
hilarious.
I ended up having a very long relationship working with him. I still work with him to this day. And I think that I helped him deal with his arrogance. Do you know what I mean? I helped him kind of like
That's awesome. God
I
bless
helped him kind of
you.
understand that, kindness and listening to the client, and you don't have to walk in there like, the big dick's on the table.
Uh,
You can just kind of like, you know, you can just listen and take in what they're saying. And so there are lots of people like that in my career that I've worked with that they've taught me a lot too. That guy taught me a tremendous amount too, because like just to give you an example, the team that we were working together on, they had been, in my view, very kind of emotionally abused by the management of that station. They had been really, they weren't treated
right,
properly, they weren't paid
right.
properly, they weren't
You
honored.
hear about that a lot in the
Oh
music
my God.
industry. You hear about that all the time.
It was just a
I
mess. It was a
yeah.
mess. And so I was trying to promote a kind of a more compassionate, kinder kind of environment. And this particular director, he had a style he was very tough with his team. He was on point with them. He was edgy with
Regimented.
them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I was going to talk to him about it. I was going to say, hey, like we're trying to build this kind of more of a family type of feel. We're trying to get, and then I noticed at the end of the night, after a really intense show, they'd all go up to him and they'd hug him and he'd hug them, and they had like this this real connection with each other. But yet when he was in the throes of production, he was tough. He would say stuff to people that were, that was a bit on the edge. And I was going to talk to him about it, but then I
Sure.
said, no, you know what? That's his methodology for working with his team, which gives him the results that he needs. They love him. There's no place for me to start to say to him. So he taught me that there are many different management styles within the scope of trying to achieve a certain humanistic goal, right? So in other
Well,
words,
what wouldn't you say with those kind of individuals too, speaking of 3 days grace, because I know who you're talking about, is that probably was more a little relatable to their personalities, right? Because I think in dealing like in the music industry, acting, I'm sure you've ran into so many personalities throughout your career that you found that you have to like get in the way that they think
for sure.
to get them to see what they need to be doing. Directing is such a hard thing. I think it's really special that people talk about the difference between acting, directing, producing. Because they all have their own roles and not a whole lot of people understand the importance of directing. So, what got you into that?
Um, I guess at a certain point I was producing a lot, and then there were certain opportunities where I felt like, oh, well, I'm producing this, and the line between producing it and directing it is not that different. So I could just direct it, and because I do a lot of writing as well. So once you're
Hmm.
writing and producing, sometimes it's just easier for you. You have the vision for what you're trying to make. You have the vision, whether it's right or wrong. You have
Hmm.
that idea. It's easier for you to just go ahead and direct. Um, and I've learned a lot about directing. I mean, I did a documentary about how I learned how to speak French, and I directed
I know
that.
je t'aime and I know oui oui. Et
Yeah, okay,
merci beaucoup. And that's pretty
that's
much about it.
c'est bon, c'est très bon. But yeah, so I learned a lot about directing on that particular doc, because it was a lot of one of the things that I set up for myself as a challenge, which I think you'll appreciate because I've seen you do stand up and do it well, is I did
Well, thank you. That was the only time in my life.
well.
Only.
You did
Only.
good. You were quite confident. I was very surprised at how you had a real swagger on stage. So what I did was I challenged myself to do a set in French in front of a theatrical
I
audience, over 1,000
remember
people.
this conversation. Oh, yes.
It was the most terrifying thing I'd ever done in my life. I swear to God. I remember standing backstage. It was in this theater in Quebec City. There was a 8 camera shoot, 1,000 people in the audience. I'm backstage in the black there, just waiting to go on. The host introduced me, but I'm just backstage and I'm just thinking to myself, man, you are such an asshole. Why did you put yourself in this position? You didn't have to do this. You're directing this thing. You didn't have to do this. And I
Hmm.
went out, and like the first 3 or 4 jokes worked, and then I improvised a joke, and that worked. And I was like, okay, this is going well. So then I had that confidence and I kept moving. And after it was over, I swear to God, Sierra, for 3 days, my feet didn't touch the ground. I just floated through earth. I just felt like, okay, I survived that. I can survive anything.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because it was so fun at Podfest. I felt the same exact way that you did. Like I just got off a conversation with someone else where I literally took the longest shower that morning than I've ever done before in my life because all I could think was is, oh my God, this is the sequence of what I want to do it. And I knew it was gonna come out differently. Um, and the end was perfection. I thought it was just like, hey, it's my first time, laugh your ass off at me. Um, the thing that I got from it the most was the fact that I found a part of me that I've never expressed to
Mm-hmm,
other
mm-hmm,
people.
mm-hmm.
Because when you're in a group of people that you know, right? It's easy to like joke around with your significant other, your kid, your friends, your whatever. But to stand up in front of people you don't know and tell them like all your personal information and bare all, it's like, holy crap, what the hell did I just
It's
and
it's
people
funny
will
because
remember that.
I know it's so strange because I've only done one set in English. I've only done one set of comedy in English once, and it was really challenging. And it's my first language. I think my material was too political in nature, and the audience was like looking for more like relationship jokes and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
because as a musician, in my band, we did a lot of storytelling. But there is such a
Yes.
difference. Like I can stand on stage and I can tell you a story. And I'm not even intimidated by that. I'm very comfortable. I'm very relaxed. No problem. The difference between doing that, just a guy, microphone, audience, go up and do a
Mhm.
set of stand up, same thing, a guy, audience, microphone. It's exactly the same. It is so different because when you're a musician and you go up and tell a story, people have no expectations to laugh, right? They're not they're
Yes.
not looking to laugh. You go up on stage when you're doing stand up and you're coming after 6 comics who just killed it. They have an expectation and they will eat you alive if you don't meet it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
they
it's a
do.
whole it's a whole different thing. It's like, and so I was nervous when I went and did both the comedy in French, which people can see on my YouTube page, Matt Zimble YouTube. They can find it there. Um, and then there's and you don't really even need to speak French because my French is so kind of English sounding that you'll understand it. But anyway,
I may not. I may not.
yeah,
I
possibly.
may not.
Anyway, so the thing about it is that all these different disciplines they bring different requirements from your kind of your bag of tricks, but at the
Mhm.
center of the bag of tricks is certain core things, and one of the core things is you have to work hard. You have to find out what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, how to compensate for your weaknesses. One of the most comforting things that I ever heard about show business and about performance, and this doesn't matter whether you're a performer or whether you're giving a speech to your office, or whether you're coaching little league for your daughter, whatever it is that you're doing. If you're going to address people in public, one of the things that's critically important is being prepared. And to be prepared, a lot of people get nervous. The thing that I learned about that is that Mel Brooks once said, and Mel Brooks is a genius. He's a
Hmm.
comic
Yes.
genius
Yes.
who's still alive. I think he's like 97 years old. He's still performing. He said, if you're in the arts, if you're a performer and you're not nervous, you're full of shit. Because if you're nervous, that makes you work harder. That makes you learn your lines. That makes you study hard for doing what you need to do. And
Exactly.
that particular moment, I remember where I was. I remember where I was driving at that moment. It was one of those real serious kind of like, wow, okay. So what it did was it gave me permission to be nervous, because being nervous makes you work harder. And if you work harder, if you think to yourself, what could possibly go wrong? How could I prevent that from happening? What's my backup plan? You're doing all this stuff because you're nervous, because you're not swaggering around fully confident. You're concerned. Is this going to be good? This has to be good. I have to make sure this is good. And so when you've got permission to be nervous, that is a grace of gargantuan proportions. Totally important thing to recognize. It makes you work
Well,
harder.
so you know what I compare comedy to, right? So like during a muscle competition, where the guys get up in their speedos or the women in their bikinis and they're competing, and then you got this out of shape person going up there and going, "Hey, look at me." And that's what I compare comedy to, right? Because in really speaking in general, because you have to flip your mindset. You may not be that, but your mindset needs to flip to that. And I had someone actually approach me recently, and she was like, "You do this a lot. I've noticed this." And she goes, I like to, she goes, "I don't know. It's like some kind of famous bipolar disorder you have, because I can get on stage and I can flip my mindset,
That's
and
good.
it changes." So the entire time I was standing up there, I was looking at you, and I picked out like 3 or 5 people because I knew that I could kind of hold my face to a certain extent, but I really liked how you compared that whole congruency factor, because it is so true. So with your podcast now, let's get into that. I really want to get into that now. Podcast. What got you into podcast radio? What was your verve for that? Was it a new avenue? Was it just something like, "Oh, hey, I want to try this," or
Well, I've loved radio for a long time. So here we have in Canada, we have the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, which is like, your NPR, right?
Mhm.
And except it's kind of better than your NPR. So the thing that I had an opportunity, because I was hosting the music show that I was doing. I was hosting my band on stage. A
Mhm.
producer from CBC came and said, "Hey, you'd be a good radio host. Do you want to do a couple shows with me?" So I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'd love to do that," because I've always liked
Mhm.
writing and I've always liked storytelling and stuff. So I did a bunch of stuff at the CBC over a number of years. I had 3 national programs for them, like summer replacement programs, and I'd be a contributor to different programs. So I always loved working in the world of like writing and audio. So
Mhm.
uh, about what was it? I guess 6 years ago, I had written this book, which is still not published. I'm still looking for a publisher. It's called "Yes We Canada: The Progressive's Guide to Getting the Fuck Out," and it was intended for Americans who are thinking about moving to Canada. And the idea behind the book was we were going to explain Canada in all of its wisdom and all of its faults to Americans and compare it to
Mhm.
America, because I'm an American citizen as well as a Canadian citizen. So I felt like I could do that without being accused of culturally appropriating somebody else's culture. So after a while trying to get the book published, we went into COVID, and I realized that, okay, I need something to do during COVID because I can't leave the house. So I started the podcast during COVID, and what I would do is I would take a chapter from the book and I would adapt it to spoken word. And the way that I wanted to do it was I wanted to do a podcast that had a lot of production value to it. So um, there's a lot of sound design on it, and there's a lot of clips. I use clips from media clips, historical, political clips. Um, and a lot of sound. So there's a lot of sound design, and so that's basically what it is. We're on episode 55, and season 4, almost finished with season 4.
And what's it called?
It's
What's it
called
called?
Yes, Yes We Canada: The Progressive's Guide to Getting the Fuck Out.
You're so good. I
And
so I have heard so many F bombs today already, and it's not even 1 o'clock. It's so hilarious. But
look, if the president can use it, so can I.
yeah, exactly. Well, there you go.
There you go.
Absolutely. It technically what was the terminology that it was built on? It was a Germanic terminology and something about
Uh,
a king. Yeah, I don't know. It was funny though. Someone tried to explain it to me the other day, and I thought, okay. But anyway, I really appreciate you coming on the show,
oh, it's a pleasure.
sharing with us what exactly you do. And then now, do you have more lineage of projects lined up that we don't know about?
Well, I'm actually working on this book called Adulting: The Adult's Guide to Adulting.
Adulting. Adulting
Adulting.
is really awful, isn't it? It's like adulting to me, it's easy, but it's kind of like I just like to be spontaneous and have fun with it a little bit. Like,
Well, there you go. That's what keeps you youthful.
yes. So, do you explain to people how to stay youthful and not get old too
I,
fast?
I do. I tell stories from my experience of many years now. So I tell stories. There are humorous stories in the book, and basically I make social observations, and every chapter ends with a little bit of advice, what the takeaway is of every chapter. So that way people can kind of encapsulate what it is that they're trying to take away from this particular experience. But so I'm working on publishing that, and I'm working on still trying to get the other book, the Yes We Canada book, published. So those things are ongoing, and we're in the process of putting together a YouTube channel for a series of TV shows that we did with the band. We did 9 hours of recording in the studio with 2 guests on each show, where we arranged their music for our instrumentation. And so we're going to start putting that up on YouTube pretty soon. So those are the kind of the
And
current
what is
things that
your
I'm
band's
working.
name again?
The
Because
the band the
you're
band's
going
called Manteca.
okay, Manteca, and you're going to where again here pretty soon?
Oh, I'm producing a show in Kigali, Rwanda, starting on the 17th of July.
That is going to be really flippin' cool. I can't wait to talk to you at Podfest. I'm putting together a committee, and you better show up in my room because it is going to be called the Rule Breakers, and you're a rule breaker,
Oh,
right?
well,
You're
thank
very
you.
unique. Yes, yes.
I wasn't
And
sure that I'm not sure I'm gonna go back. I'm not sure about going to the United States right now, you know.
oh, you should just drag yourself to Florida. Hey, listen, at least when you're in Florida, you can get a tan.
Yeah, that's true. Are you in Orlando?
I am not. I am in Southwest Florida. I am so thankful that I don't live in Orlando because Orlando is so busy and I hate the traffic there.
The
So
water is also terrible in Orlando. I thought
it
the drinking water was like foul.
yeah, no, it is. I'm in between Sarasota, Fort Myers, so
Ah, okay.
I'm on the pretty side.
Right.
So now when you start your project now, is that going to be like a full on project for a year or what's
Which project are you speaking of?
the when you
Oh yeah,
travel in July?
no, that one, that's only for 2 weeks, and then I'm home, and that's it.
Okay. So it's very short.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, very good. Well, good luck on your books. I just finished my book. I got to get my book published too. So I
that's a voyage.
it is. It is. But I wish you the best. And if I don't see you at Podfest, I hope to have you back on the show.
It would
Uh
be my pleasure.
yeah, you should just have me on your show just so you can see me again because
We
you're
don't
so
have
much fun.
guests. We don't have guests on the show. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like you should listen to it. It's very different from, because it's like an essay
Yeah.
with sound design. So it's a very different kind of a show. We don't
Okay.
use video either. It's all audio only. But anyway,
Okay.
I've been so thrilled to talk to you, and I really appreciate you inviting me on your podcast. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
absolutely. And again, just a little cliff note. If people want to try and find your band and what you're up to, where they find you.
Manteca-music.com.
Okay.
That's where
Can
you
you
can find the
spell
band.
that? Can you spell it?
MANTECA dash
Okay.
music.com. You'll find it there.
Okay. All right. Well, Matt, I cannot wait to talk to you again. Good luck with everything. Okay.
Thanks, Sierra. Appreciate
Have
it.
a wonderful day. Bye
Take
bye.
care. You too. Bye.